Glutathione is considered the mother of all antioxidants, the master antioxidant. And it's comprised of 3 amino acids. It's made in every cell in our bodies, which speaks to its importance. Levels kind of start to go down as we get older. And then as we're exposed to more and more toxins, our levels of glutathione get depleted. And there's a close association between low levels of glutathione and some real serious conditions, including cancer. It's just such a powerful antioxidant. When you were talking about research studies, there's over 100,000 clinical research studies.
Welcome to the CoachMD podcast. I'm Dr. Charles Glassman, bringing you 3 decades of experience as a physician and a coach. Join us as we navigate the maze of medical advice with real-life stories, empowering you to take charge of your health. In our That Happens segment, guests share transformative experiences, reminding us that we're all human and not just patients. So get ready for a journey into healthcare reimagined, where empowerment and discovery pave the way.
Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. In my over 30 years of medical practice, I've made it my goal to help people create a strong mind, a healthy body, and an unshakable spirit. And I like to have guests on my show on the CoachMD podcast because I know that going to a regular general doctor, getting your yearly physical, getting the advice, I know my colleagues. I mean, I was there. I had to do my own research because it's not our job to take care of people. It's really our job to empower people to be able to take care of themselves in the way that works best for them. And we don't learn all the tools in medical school to do that. We don't get the proper education about diet, about nutrition. We're taught a very myopic way of looking at things. And so we have to do our own research. And I always look to my patients really to learn things, because if someone has an issue, they're doing their own research. They become an expert in that. And my guest today is Dr. Gina Nick, who has done a lot of research and has come across what she feels is a product that can be very helpful to people. We're going to talk a lot about what that product is. It's what's called a glutathione. That's a molecule that is considered one of the biggest and best antioxidants out there. So we're going to talk a lot about antioxidation, what that is, and what glutathione does, and a lot about Dr. Gina Nick. So thanks a lot for coming on the program today, Dr. Gina.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So what's your background and how did you get interested in this?
Well, I'm a naturopathic doctor. So I went to naturopathic medical school. I wanted to be a doctor from when I was a little girl. I always said I'm going to be a doctor. I actually want to be a pediatrician. And then I wanted to tap dance on the side so I didn't get bored. So it's in my blood. I always wanted to be a doctor. And when I was in pre-med, going through just the traditional routes, I was at UCLA, and my uncle was the head of the immunology department at UCLA Medical School. So I was just going to kind of go that route.
Yeah.
However, I was always in the library researching nutrition, and I was so fascinated by nutritional supplements and nutrition. And this was a long time ago where there wasn't a lot of talk about that, but it was just a passion of mine. And my honors academic counselor gave me a brochure for a naturopathic medical school. I was like, what's this? I can be a doctor and actually, do the things that I really believe in. And so that I kind of never looked back from there. When I graduated, I started consulting in the nutritional supplement world, and I became the director of research for Standard Process, which is one of the leading nutritional supplement companies in the country, if not the world, that caters to healthcare professionals. And since then, I've formulated a lot of products, and I've realized that my real love is product formulation, creating natural medicines that work and can impact so many people. I've also been in private practice for several decades plus, and I formulate custom supplements for my patients. So I'll test their blood and I'll do a big, large workup, and then I'll create supplements specifically for them. So through all of that, I kind of become known for detoxification. I created the standard process purification program. I wrote a book about it. And I was hired by a company actually that manufactures a form of glutathione that's created through a fermentation process that's been proven to actually boost blood levels. And that's not something that's the case usually with glutathione. And I know we'll talk all about that in oral form. So because I was hired by them to research it in my practice, I took the time and really did a deep dive into glutathione. I'd known about it, I used it in my practice, but I didn't realize just how powerful this molecule is and how impactful it could be to so many people. And so that inspired me to eventually create Best Daily Ever glutathione pixie sticks. I wanted to make glutathione in a
talk
form.
about that in a second. I just want to back up a little bit because I want to kind of clarify the kind of the differences between a naturopathic physician, a doctor like myself.
Sure.
You know, what basically the way I look at it, you know, when we go to medical school, and that's something I kind of always wanted to do myself, and that's kind of that really got me focused when I was in college to really do that. And I just had a one-track mind. I was a math major, but with the idea that I was going to go to medical school. And so in medical school, we learn about diseases and disease processes. We basically learn about what to do when someone gets sick, right? Well, that's basically medical school. We're taught to how to, again, take care of people. And I learned early on that that wasn't my passion. I didn't like to take care of people. That to me, that sounds authoritarian. You know, it's not something I wanted to do. I wanted to have a relationship with people and kind of a give and take and be a guide to people so they can look after themselves. And a naturopathic physician, the way I look at it, is kind of not holistic, that's not the right word, but using natural substances or helping the body, utilizing and empowering our own bodies to heal themselves and sometimes supplementing natural products to augment that. And what's your take on that? Did I leave anything out or?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, there's this understanding that the body does have the ability to heal itself. You know, take away some barriers to cure. So remove the things that are blocking your body from being able to do what it's designed to do. And then give it what it needs. If it's deficient in certain elements or because of the quality of our food, it doesn't have the nutrients it needs to function properly, give it what it needs. And then allow it to heal itself. And then also just always trying to find the underlying cause. Like, what's the root cause of why this patient has these symptoms? And so sometimes it can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of the above. And you know this. And so that it is a more, I mean, I wish there was a better word than holistic. It's so overused, you know, but it is a more whole body approach, really understanding more so, or having a greater appreciation. Again, I'm generalizing, but a great appreciation for the interconnectivity of it all. And really looking at the whole person and doing our best to, like I said, find the underlying cause so that, you know, they're operating at their optimal level, whatever that is for them.
Yeah, and it's individual. Everybody's different, and I always looked at that in my practice. And my listeners know that I changed my practice about 12 years in, and I became one of the first doctors in the country to have what's called a concierge practice, and that was in 2002. And that allowed me to really hone in on my relationship with my patients, and I found much more success in dealing with and helping people get over being sick and being able to stay well. And again, more of a multifactorial approach where mind, body, and spirit is considered. Now, the naturopathic approach, you know, I look at myself and you know, I feel as though I'm aging well. I'm going to be 65 this year. I'm very physically fit, and a lot of that has to do with my nutrition and the way I've taken care of myself. And also when I was in medical school, I remember going to the health food store, the vitamin store. It wasn't the chain, the vitamin store, but a
Yeah.
vitamin store, and picking out supplements and kind of learning about and I started when I was in my 20s doing
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it all along. My adult children now are, I've done that. My wife does that. And we look
Yeah.
for things that, and that's not to say that sometimes you do need medication, sometimes you
Yeah.
do, but more often than not, to stay well, you don't really need medication to stay well. And you can supplement, and as you said, with our foods that we eat, the soils that are not as healthy as they once were, and they don't have the nutrients, and so we're lacking in nutrients, we're lacking in cofactors and all sorts of things. And that's where having a guide, such as a doctor who's open to that, either a medical doctor or an MD or an naturopathic D, an ND. Those are very important. Now, you talked about being excited about glutathione, and we talk about antioxidants, and people hear that word antioxidant all the time. And can you explain to my listeners, viewers, what that really means? What is an antioxidant? Why is it important? What does it do?
Yeah. So antioxidants, they're found in nature. So lots of fruits and vegetables are usually high in antioxidants. Your berries, dark pigmented vegetables are high in antioxidants. And what they're designed to do is neutralize what's called free radicals. And so and by the way, you also make antioxidants in your body. And so free radicals are toxins, basically singlet oxygens. They're toxins that are found in our air, our water, our food. Our thoughts create toxins. If we're fighting an infection, we'll create toxins to fight off that infection. So sometimes they can be good, but when they get out of hand and you're exposed to too many toxins, that's where the antioxidants will bind to those toxins and render them inactive. And then they get excreted from your body. There's this elaborate system in the body called the human detoxification system, which I went to naturopathic medical school and I wasn't fully well versed in what the human detoxification system was, even in naturopathic medical school.
Yeah.
I really, learned that after I graduated.
Yeah.
But there's this amazing system in our body that's designed to take toxins and convert them into a form that can then get removed from our body. The reason? Because toxins tend to congregate in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cells, the energy producers of our cells, and cause damage, genetic damage, cellular damage, and compromise energy, etc. Cause inflammation, and really are the culprit for a lot of the diseases that we see.
Yeah. So my favorite example to kind of get a visual of it is, antioxidants. So it's like, what does oxygen do? What can oxygen? Obviously, we need oxygen, but oxidation is basically what the rusting process is, and the hardening of a hose. If you leave a hose outside too long, it hardens, it cracks, it gets oxidized. And we know what rust deteriorates metal, and it destroys it. So in a sense, when we're exposed to those free radicals and causing oxidation in our body, it's basically an internal rusting, a destruction of it. And it's interesting because you and I both know that doctors poo-poo anything to do with many doctors, not all doctors, many doctors poo-poo anything to do with nutritional supplements. Oh, they don't work. Oh, please. Oh, there's no studies. I love that one. There's no studies. I mean, you just have to go to PubMed, and there are probably 30,000 studies on vitamin C, for instance, or any other, or glutathione for that matter. But when they say that they don't work, but what is interesting is that they actually are admitting that they do work. And how do I know that? Because if you know anyone who is going through a treatment for cancer, for instance, so cancer drugs, what they do is they cause oxidation of cancer cells. They kill cancer cells by oxidation, whether it's chemical oxidation, whether it's radiation causing oxidation. And what is the first thing that the oncologist tells the patient to do when they're about to undertake cancer treatment? Stop your antioxidants. So they're basically saying,
Yeah.
stop your antioxidants because they do work to stop oxidation. But we oxidation here because we want to kill your cancer cells. So they're actually admitting that they do work.
That's true. That's true. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
great. Yeah.
It's several years ago when that was happening, because kind of when I was going, in my community, they'll look at me and my medical community and, oh, he's the alternative medicine doc. That's another word that's not great. Alternative medicine. Alternative medicine. It's primary medicine. I mean, it's primary care. You're giving people tools. It's alternative because it's not a pharmacologic model necessarily. Right. So talking about the antioxidants, there are besides glutathione, what would you say are some effective antioxidants that one could think about using for their health?
I mean, the top three in my book are vitamin C, glutathione, and they work together, and vitamin E. I would say those are the three, likely most important antioxidants that we have, that we know of.
What would you, what do you think about like the polyphenols, the things that people look at, like green tea extract or pomegranate or things like that? Well,
those are amazing catechins and green tea. Those are all amazing antioxidants as well. There are so many. I mean, there's so.
And right. And we could go on and on with that. And that would be a Joe Rogan podcast, a 3-hour podcast. Yeah. But we're not there yet. CoachMD podcast is not quite there. So what I like to do,
not yet.
I do want to focus on a ubiquitous antioxidant. When I say ubiquitous, because it is, we produce glutathione. That is our something that we have in our body, part of that detoxifying or that antioxidant way that we get rid of things that are bad for us. And you kind of stumbled upon that and now are looking at it, and if you could just explain what glutathione is, what it's made of, the components it's made of, and why that's important.
So glutathione is considered the mother of all antioxidants, the master antioxidant. And it's comprised of 3 amino acids. So it's a tripeptide. It's comprised of glutamic acid, glycine, and cysteine. And it's made in every cell in our bodies, which speaks to its importance. And levels kind of start to go down as we get older. The number of, the amount of glutathione that we naturally produce goes down. And then as we're exposed to more and more toxins, our levels of glutathione get depleted. And there's a close association between low levels of glutathione and some real serious conditions, including cancer, but also Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, attention deficit disorder, autism are all associated with lower levels of glutathione. And sometimes there's a defect where your body's not making enough glutathione. But really, it's just such a powerful antioxidant. When you were talking about research studies, there's over 100,000 clinical research studies on glutathione. And so to me,
studies, Dr. Gina, come on. There's no studies on that, right? That's what you go to a doctor's office if you ask your doctor about it.
Right. And that's, again, as a doctor myself and in practice and doing all these things, would I have done such a deep dive into glutathione had I not been hired to do it? Probably not, right? I would have used it in my practice, but I'm so thankful that happened, because after going through that process, and I started lecturing all over the world on glutathione and neuroinflammation and all sorts of things, I realized that most people don't know about it. Doctors know about it. They oftentimes don't use it in their practice. And I'm like, that's it. I want to make glutathione a household name, just like vitamin C is. And I want it to be accessible to everyone because I truly see that the need for glutathione is it's so high in our world, for adults and kids now.
Yeah.
Kids didn't used to need glutathione, right? Because they're young and they make a lot. And as you get older, the levels go down. But now we're seeing, that levels are getting depleted because one of the reasons is because of just the volume of exposure to toxins that they face.
Yeah.
And radiation too.
Yeah.
Radiation also depletes glutathione. And that's all kinds of X-rays, but also electromagnetic frequencies, so yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that we make it so, the question is, okay, so why do you need to supplement? And if you do supplement, how do you supplement? Because as you said, it's a tripeptide. And what that means is, when we eat protein, our body breaks it down into amino acids. And the amino acids, that's the workhorse of our body, the amino acid. When we talk about increasing our protein, it's really we're looking to increase certain different amino acids, and different amino acids have different properties and act or byproducts for all sorts of things, for enzymes, for just all sorts of different processes that our body has, and they have different. So, for instance, the muscle, our muscle needs certain types of amino acids, and our immune system needs certain types of amino acids, and glutathione needs certain amino acids. And you mentioned the amino acids, but how does before your product, how does somebody, besides taking an IV of glutathione, how does someone get what they need to help the body? Again, we're trying to help ourselves and teach people how to help themselves. How do we help the body produce that glutathione?
So you can take a glutathione supplement. And so normally the types that you would find in like a capsule form or an oral form are not bioavailable. They don't get to where they need to go intact in order to have the result you want, which is as a high quality, very powerful antioxidant. There's liposomal form, and that's a form that's oral, that's well absorbed. And I used it in my practice. The challenge is it tends to have an unpleasant taste, an unpleasant smell, or it has to be refrigerated. So patient compliance for me was always an issue. I couldn't get myself to take it, let alone my patients.
Right.
And then, or you can inject it is another way. Some people, I used to prescribe it in a nebulized form until we weren't able to access that in California. But it can also be nebulized is another good way to deliver glutathione. But again, it smells really bad. So that's the tricky part with glutathione is it has a sulfur component to it. So it doesn't smell good, doesn't taste good. And that was my challenge was I want this to taste great. And I want it to taste great for kids, but I don't want it to have any sugar in it. But I want it to taste like a pixie stick. So that was, through just my own process, being able to create something that works, that tastes really good.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot about that because I want to talk about what you did to help that get absorbed, because like you said, the absorption is the number one and most important thing. And we eat a lot of things, but if our body's not, if it's just going out our GI tract, it's not going to work. So like you said, the liposomal, it's kind of like in a kind of a fatty, insulated, so it's not broken down by the acid in our stomach, and it's absorbed through the small intestine and it gets into our body. But there's other ways that, like a lot of people talk about N-acetylcysteine, NAC,
Yeah.
and that's another one that I'd like to point out to the hardcore medical scientists out there who say there's no studies, whatever, and there's no place for this in medicine. Well, it's very interesting because if you go into the emergency room, God forbid, with a Tylenol overdose, the first thing you're given is mucor and mucor is N-acetylcysteine, and that's to boost the glutathione to get rid of the excess Tylenol that's killing your liver. Okay,
Yep.
so I learned that when I was an intern. Tylenol overdose, mucor. That's one thing. Another thing is inhaled N-acetylcysteine, like you said, in patients who have cystic fibrosis, used all the time. It was used in COVID, or people with COPD for excess secretions. So this is used in general medicine. So there is a place, and if you just extrapolate that and remove it and look at it for general health purposes, there's a real place for that. And that's the segue to your product, Dr. Gina, glutathione, this powerful antioxidant made up of 3 different amino acids. And you have done something. So if we're taking it in, it's not going to get degraded by the acid in our stomach into the individual amino acids and then, taken in and going to all the other places, but it's intact. And if you could talk more about this product.
Sure, sure. So the form of glutathione that I put into the pixie sticks is the form that I was hired to research. So I know it intimately well. So I saw how it boosts blood levels and red blood cell levels, intracellular levels of glutathione. So that's number one. And there's double-blind placebo-controlled study backing what I'm saying. And so the research is absolutely there to show that. Also clinically, I just saw in my practice how well it was working in my patients. So anyway, I started with that form of glutathione. And then I added other things to it. So I chose to sweeten the pixie sticks with glycine, a little bit of stevia as well, but glycine was the main factor. And that was something I just woke up one morning it was during COVID, while I was putting this formula together. And I'm like, that's it, glycine, that's what needs to be added. And glycine is one of the amino acids that the body uses to make glutathione. So we're introducing, another way to boost glutathione levels as well. And then I added things like vitamin D3, zinc, because when you take glutathione, sometimes if you take a lot of it over time, there can be it can lower the levels of zinc in your body. So I put zinc into the formula as well. And so it's a well-rounded immune formula. It also has magnesium glycinate and vitamin C. Vitamin C and glutathione work together. They are, partners in all this. And so, it was the first time I sent the formula to the lab, got it back. That sample tasted perfect, and it hasn't been changed since.
Wow.
And so it was really an amazing, I feel, I will say it was divinely inspired. The whole thing was divinely inspired. Like, why did I all of a sudden, I'm like, that's it. I'm going to make glutathione a household name and I'm going to stop everything else. And in the middle of COVID, homeschooling my daughter and seeing patients and all that, I was like, I'm doing this. And I did. And, but the ease of, in terms of the product formulation and getting the first sample back and it just being so perfect from the get-go, it really inspired me and it inspires me to this day. So when I run into challenges as a business owner and all of that, it's like, no, this is supposed to be out there and I'm going to make sure it gets to as many people as possible.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I very much believe in divine intervention. I've had quite a lot of that in my life, and I have also had guests on sharing their stories. So I appreciate that. I definitely, know that there's an importance of glutathione, and it's something that has been on my radar for a long time. And it's actually has dropped off my radar a little bit until I saw what you were doing and decided to have this discussion. So it's definitely going to be on my radar again, because I know that, or higher up on my radar, because I know that it's the importance of antioxidants. And as I said, that doctors don't even realize it, but they're endorsing this sort of thing. And
I love that. I'm gonna use that if you don't mind. I'm gonna share what you said because that's perfect.
run with it. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me kind of, how you're using it in your practice, the kind of results that you're seeing, and what, a typical user can see, if anything, because we know that
Okay.
sometimes we do things that we know are good for us and they may not have an outer effect. It may be years. You may not even realize it. I know a lot of interventions that I've done in my life are the reason why I'm here at my age the way I am. And I can't pinpoint exactly what one thing is doing or another. But if you could kind of tell us a little bit of some of the things that people are seeing, if anything.
Yeah. So I'm results oriented. So I like to see results. And I saw when I was using just the glutathione in my practice, I saw what it was doing for my patients. One of the most interesting things, and this wasn't intentional in terms of when I created this product, it was primarily I was looking at my daughter saying, how do I get her friends to take something that's going to keep their immune system strong and substitute the sugar? And just if I know they're taking that, I feel good as a mom, as a, just as a naturopathic doctor. And so that was the real inspiration, but I made it for adults and kids. And what I found, what the reports keep coming in, it's working really well for perimenopause and menopause. So
Mm,
women going through perimenopause and menopause, primarily the women who don't take hormones. So I have all my patients who I put on bioidentical hormones, they all take my product. They all do. I mean, and then I don't like force it on them, but I do suggest it. And then they keep taking it because they see the benefits. And what are the benefits? Improved sleep is a big one. Hot flashes, it just kind of their hot flashes subside even though they're not taking estrogen, which is amazing to
mm,
me, right?
yeah,
And I think it has to do with because it's clearing out the xenoestrogens. It's a detoxifying
yeah,
agent, and
mm,
so that's part of why.
interesting.
So sleep, and then also energy levels, and then some of my patients, they're not getting sick. One of my patients travels, I forget how many, the guy, he travels like 90% of the time,
Mm,
literally on the road 90% of the time. And he used to get sick all the time. That's why he came in originally. And since he's been taking it, he doesn't get sick. He just doesn't. And he's exposed to everything. And he's like, look, I'm so used to getting sick. I come back from these trips across the world and I'm sick. I'm sick for a week or whatnot. And so that's a big one. Other interesting things in kids is for like scratchy throats, just taking a pixie stick, it seems to just cause the sore throat to subside. And then for improving bowel movements.
mm,
So, and that could be tied to help because glycine and glutathione are very important in balancing the gut microbiome. So they play a role there. So those were like unintended
yeah.
benefits. Also, another area that I'm very interested in is neuroinflammation. And so cognitive issues. And so taking the pixie sticks, I even notice it if I'm having a day of just overworking or whatnot, or foggy thinking, and I take a pixie stick, I just feel better. I'm like, why do I feel better? Why do my patients say they just feel better taking them, but they can't really give me a reason why exactly? I think it just has to do with lowering neuroinflammation, which we're all probably experiencing some of at some level these days. You may or may not agree with that, but it seems to me that more and more people are faced with that. And so I think by lowering that neuroinflammation, you do experience that immediate effect of just you feel clearer and a little more energized. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting because look, our bodies are so complicated, and we just don't know the what one thing really is, one natural thing like glutathione, which is, like I said, ubiquitous in our body, and we don't know the other effects that it has. We know it's an antioxidant, but it obviously has other actions. And that's why when somebody takes a tiny little pharmaceutical pill. Just look how, how tiny these pills are and the massive effect they have on that one thing that they're supposed to be doing. Just think about what else they could be doing that may not be so good. Because it's something external from us. It's something that we don't know how to handle. Our bodies may not know how to handle. It may just target one enzyme that has been discovered in the test tube or whatever. But
Right.
yeah. So glutathione, which is in our body, I don't doubt that it has some of those effects because it must have other effects besides the detoxification of, and which is a big one, but we know it
Right.
most likely has other effects. So if are the different forms of your product, does it come in other forms besides the pixie stick?
Just in capsule form. So I have a where it's just literally just that form of glutathione, the clinically researched form, and vitamin C. That's it. Just very simple. And some patients they just like to take just the capsules, and then but the pixies are. I just, I kind of pictured a pixie stick in every kid's lunchbox,
Yeah.
and adults love them. You add them to water, you add them to your Stanley cup or whatnot. It makes it so that you tend to drink more water because it tastes good.
Yeah,
It
I would
actually
prefer
tastes
that.
good. Yeah.
I definitely would prefer that.
So,
You mentioned that you had studies that showed that it increased levels, serum levels or cellular levels of,
yeah.
the glutathione. Could you talk a little bit about those studies?
Yeah. And so the form of glutathione that I use is something called Cetria. So it's a branded form of glutathione, and they have a ton of data backing the bioavailability of their glutathione. And so, it was interesting when I was making the formula, there's a lot of glutathione out there. And so I
Yeah.
thought about this, if I invest in the time and energy to like educate everybody on glutathione, that doesn't mean, go log on to Amazon and buy the cheapest form of glutathione, because I know from formulating supplements for the better part of 2 decades that just because something is on the label doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work or it's good for you or safe.
Or what's on the label is actually what's in it.
What's it? Well, that's another, that's
Right.
another, yeah. And so quality control is a major thing and very important for me, just because I've been behind the scenes. I've formulated products for a lot of the top supplement companies out there. And anyway, so this form of glutathione happens to be expensive, and there are cheaper forms. And so oftentimes I'll see other glutathiones on the market, and I'm like, yeah, but they're using this form that there's no research behind it. Who knows what else is in there? Who knows what the quality control standards are if it's coming, say, from China or whatnot? And so then you can have an issue. And quite, if I'm creating a product, I want to make sure it's safe and as effective as possible. Uh, and it's funny, when I was director of research at Standard Process, we would get into these arguments with the finance people because I would want to use these branded ingredients, because if an ingredient has been branded, oftentimes the manufacturer of that ingredient has invested the time and the money to research that ingredient in order, before they're going to brand it and get it out there. And so this, in general, those branded ingredients have some really solid, good data behind them, and they tend to be more expensive. And
Yeah.
so when you're looking at labels, it's important to see, what's in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to try it. I can tell you, and I know some people near and dear to my heart who are definitely going to try it also.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll have all the links in the description, which it'll be on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. So I'm going to put all the links there, and hopefully we'll pique the interest, because I think it is important. If you're going to take any antioxidants, glutathione is a good one to take. And from what it sounds like, and I don't dispute that it has other benefits, and really,
Oh, yeah.
that's what I like about natural supplements is a lot of times, most of the time, there's no downside. And certainly with glutathione, that I know look, there's a downside if you overdose with anything, but you're not going to overdose it because you have what you're supposed to take in the dosing size. So, and you form, like, as you said, if you take glutathione could over time diminish zinc and you put that in the product, and that's a good formulator, and that's great. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, is there anything before we break that you'd like to share
Yeah.
with my audience?
With just like also vitamin C. So, in nature, like you never just see one isolated ingredient. Like an
Right,
orange doesn't
right,
just have vitamin C in it, right?
right.
There's a lot of cofactors and things. So I think it's always good to kind of look at the cofactors, the other things that help support maybe the main ingredient that you're wanting to introduce to people. And so that's where with this formula, I'm really passionate about that. Like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
this is
that.
this is really a synergistic formula designed to support immune function and balance inflammation and just keep kids and adults healthier and happier and maybe clearer thinking, which
Yeah.
is an
Well,
important thing in our world. So
yeah, well, that's a great segue to close out, because I'm all about synergy, and because we are synergistic beings and we are not uh, just singular, and we have a mind, a body, and spirit. And I really appreciate you coming on, Dr. Gina, and thank you everyone for joining us on the CoachMD podcast. As you know, I'm Dr. Charles, aka Coach MD, urging you to stay strong in mind, in body, and right here in soul, because we're all of those things. Bye for now.